Hey, everybody, welcome. We're going to give
Hey,
everybody just a second to join here. Welcome to our summer series. Sneha,
yeah,
I
welcome.
was just joking with my family that it's the summer series and I have a long sleeve shirt on, and I actually wish I had more because my hands are so cold.
That's crazy. Yeah, because I'm in New York right now and I did not prepare for the heat wave that's going on right now. And because I traveled from SF, and in SF, you always have to walk around with a warm layer. And so I didn't have anything for the summer. It was so last minute, and it's 110 in New York right now, and I am sweating. Yeah.
That's so hot. Yeah, I think like the Bay Area is so interesting. Like it'll get up to 80s, but yeah, in the morning it's just you want your jacket on.
Yeah. And I like the 80s. Like it's great.
Yeah, that's
It's
perfect. 100
perfect
times too much.
temperature around. Yeah,
You just needed to be in character for today. You're like, it's heating
yeah,
up, people.
exactly.
All right, we're about a minute in, so let's kick this off for those who did join on time. You're here for keeping cool under pressure. We're going to talk about how to use AI to maintain CX excellence during the summer surge periods. For those who have been following this series, you know me, but for those who are new, I'm Jackie Kenny. I lead our go-to-market product marketing team here at Observe, and I focus on helping organizations understand where AI belongs in your customer service toolkit. Sneha, why don't you give a quick intro about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. Hey, everyone. I'm Sneha, and I lead the customer value and in analytics department here at Observe. My team, we partner very closely with the operations folks, with the analytics teams, and the executive teams to connect conversation level data into enterprise level results. And today we're going to be pulling the curtain back on how some of the most forward thinking organizations are navigating the summer trends, the summer pressure with smarter workforce strategies, and how AI can help your teams not just keep up, but thrive during the summer surges. Over to you for a few housekeeping items, Jackie.
Love it. We're excited you're here. I love picking your brain on AI and all things ROI. So this will be fun. Few housekeeping items. If you don't know this platform, overall, the session will be recorded. The chat is on the right-hand side of your screen. Drop your questions in the chat at any time. There's also a Q&A section, so you can drop them in there. We will be monitoring that throughout our entire conversation. And then you'll get the recording and any follow-up resources in your email within a day or so. So with that, over to you, Sneha, to kick it off.
Awesome. Okay, so summer search periods. How do you stay calm? How do you maintain the cool, making sure that your customer experience is not impacted, right? So let's just set the stage here. We know that summer times or any seasonality related trends, they truly test your contact center efficiencies. And this is more common for sectors like travel, hospitality, insurance, retail, where volume surges between 30 to 40% are pretty common. And imagine an airline facing 2x the cancellations because of weather changes, plus a shortage of trained seasonal staff, right? So that's a recipe for disaster because that's going to spike up your wait times. It's going to Your CSAT results are going to plummet. And during summer trends or summer surges or any seasonality for that matter, it's not just more volume, it's also more complexity, right? So from vacation bookings to insurance claims to back to school support calls. These calls are longer, they're emotionally charged, and more complex. And on top of that, customers are less patient. So they're always hopping between different channels. They may start off with a voice call, then they may move on to chat, they may move on to email. And a lot of these temporary agents were hired just for filling up the seasonality trend. They feel very overwhelmed, and the ops teams are not prepared. And we also have a pretty cool statistic around this, right? So 3 in 4 customers, they do feel that support interactions are inefficient, especially during summer search periods. and nearly half of them say the wait times are unacceptable. And this is true. And I'll give you a personal example here. And I think a lot of you might have, lived a similar example. So hopefully it resonates. So just 2 days ago, I was flying from SF to New York, and my original flight was supposed to be during the day. And there was a 4.5, 5 hour delay to my flight. And so it ended up being a red eye. And that's exactly what I was trying to avoid, right? And here's the thing, it was not just my flight that got delayed. There were a few other airlines, there were a few other flights from the same airline which also got delayed and canceled. And so naturally, like many customers, I turned to support, hoping for a quick alternative resolution. But it took me about 25 to 30 minutes just to get connected to an agent. And then it took me another 20 to 30 minutes to sort through the alternate flight plans, seating options. And all of this was happening while I was taking work calls, doing my own thing, trying to stay calm, but I was just getting really frustrated. So you might think that, for someone, I've worked in the contact space for so long, I understand, what it means to be on the other side, how overwhelmed the agents face. And I thought I would be more, receptive. I would probably feel a little bit more empathetic towards such a long time, but I could feel my own patience unraveling. So the frustration that comes, during these search periods, whether you like it or not, it is reality, right? More volume, more emotion, more pressure on both sides. And the agent I spoke to, likely overwhelmed, right, under-supported, and that agent has probably been handling back-to-back emotionally charged conversations without a break. And from a business perspective, this is not just, testing out your SLAs, but it really boils down to your brand trust. This is where customer loyalty either gets built or it gets lost. And so your summer does not just create cracks in customer experience, it starts revealing them. You start to see QA backlogs. You're going to start noticing coaching delays, burnt out agents, underprepared seasonal staff, friction across channels. So the goal really is not to just catch these cracks with QA or coaching, but you need to prevent them before it even reaches an agent, right? So that's where AI and automation come in. In the case that I was talking about, my personal example, I think what would have helped is not just more staffing. It could have been better intelligent routing, could have been agent support with live AI nudges, could have been proactive status updates, just to prevent that call from happening in the first place. Over to you, Jackie.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all feel so so connected to these problems. And the worst is when you call customer support and they say, they've reached their volume and it just hangs up and you're like, oh my gosh, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Like I'm stuck, I'm in this situation, I need support, where do I go? I see a question coming in around this, and it's such a good one. During summer surge, we see customers calling, and then because they're so impatient and need that answer, they might be on hold for so long. They're emailing, they're opening the chat. And so it's creating duplicative work for their agents and really frustrating them. They're curious on how AI can help with this. Sneha, I would love to kind of hear more about how you've seen this in your customer conversations. I think this is a really interesting one to break down.
Yeah, and the one thing that I would say here, it is less about the channel hopping and more about just customers wanting a quicker time to resolution, because they're almost feeling unheard of at this point in time. And so what you're referring to, Jackie, in this question is what we like to call channel pinball or cross-channel containment inefficiency, right? Before we get to incorporating AI into this, just yesterday I was with a client of mine and we were in a discussion about this very issue, right? So you have customers who expect quick times to resolution, and even before someone's able to provide support in one channel, they're hopping. It just creates so much friction, right? A lot of times what ends up happening is when customers hop between channels, a new ticket or a new case is created for every channel, although it's the same customer trying to reach out for the same issue type. And so
not to interrupt you, or I have to remember my ticket number and read it to the next agent.
Yeah, that too, right? And so even before, like, we bake AI in here, there are a lot of process related changes that you can make to solve for this issue, right? And one of that process change is having a solid omni-channel integration strategy, right? Making sure that when customers are hopping between channels, you could have some guardrails, like maybe if a customer is calling in between 24 to 48 hours, and that customer calls in, beat any channel about the same issue, then you consolidate the different channel tickets into one. Like if you are able to map multiple customer interactions across different channels into one customer ID, anything that identifies that it's the same customer we're talking to, right? It could be their email, could be their phone number, could even be like an opportunity ID, anything that tags them, it tracks them in your system as, hey, this is the same customer who reached out on chat, same customer who reached out on email and call. If you can combine them, that's going to be super helpful in duplicating these tickets, because what it ends up doing is a lot of these organizations, they track the trend of your average case volume. And so this is going against them because it's putting the same customer with multiple cases. So it's going to, it makes it look like, the cases have spiked in such a short period of time. The other thing that you can also do is when you are having this, omni-channel integration, the key piece is transferring the context of the first touch point with that customer to all other channels and any other agent who picks up that same conversation. Because I think the massive frustration that really comes from is the fact that you have to repeat yourself every time you're trying to contact the agent through a different channel. Hey, can you tell me what exactly are you reaching out about? If I could save all that time in just repeating myself on what I reached out about, and the agent already having that context from previous channels that I've reached out to, that automatically is going to help me have a much better customer experience, right? So these are just like non-AI related things, process related changes that one could make. But now talking about AI specifically, right? We had another customer who is in the utility space, and their agents, they were drowning in volume spikes across channel. They had so many escalations, and their operational efficiency took a massive hit because all of their agents, they were spending time on repetitive transactional questions. These were the kind of queries that didn't require empathy, but it ate up so much valuable time for these agents, right? So one solution that I can think of is introducing the layer of voice AI agents, right? Who these AI agents can resolve tier one issues across channels. So they could handle the most common high volume call types like payment inquiries, maintenance related issues, status checks, basic policy related questions. And so what this ends up doing is it frees up time for your human agents to focus on the more complex tasks while you have your voice AI agents, which are helping with automation and augmentation. Hope that helped.
Yeah, I love that example. And I think when we bring it back to your experience, right, of being on hold for 20 to 25 minutes, where, first of all, for your flight being canceled, not that bad of a hold time. But if you enter in voice AI, you don't have to be on hold at all, right? So you can call in, immediately get to somebody who, voice AI kind of changes the game. It sounds like somebody, right? So you're not going to be frustrated being like, I've got a bot that's not going to help me. It sounds like a person, it's human-like, it can be conversational with you. So, it reduces your whole time from 25 minutes to 0. Hopefully you can get it resolved, but if not, then there's an agent that, to your point, can handle it and have like a smart transfer from the AI agent, which is really nice. And so I think from a customer standpoint, that is super nice because you're in a frustrated position, you want to be heard, and 25 minutes really just gets you a little bit ramped up there.
Yeah, 25 just to connect to an agent, right? And then another 25 to like repeat the issue that I, have already reached out to multiple agents about. And yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's tough.
Time is money.
Time is money. Absolutely. All right, we're getting lots of questions. I love it. Keep bringing them. Somebody's asking, we're bringing in a lot of temp managers every summer, but they don't know our QA standards. By the time they're up to speed, summer's over. very good question. How can AI help with this?
Great question, and a question I've heard so frequently, right? Yes, the answer is yes. AI can help, and in multiple ways, right? So I'm going to try and break this down into a few different solutions. The first one, when it comes to seasonal hiring, is a lot of times, and again, some context here, a lot of times organizations are still doing traditional QA, which means they're evaluating less than 3%, less than 5% of the total call volume. Now, that 3 to 5% is so small a sample size that you really cannot be that confident in your decision making abilities when you're sampling something that's so small of a subset, right? The other piece, too, when it comes to traditional QA is it's like you're trying to find needle in a haystack. There could be so many other behaviors, occurrences throughout millions of conversations that are getting clogged in, that you have no idea about what needs to be corrected, what needs to be shifted from a process standpoint, policy standpoint, people standpoint. And so the first solution that I usually recommend is, and this is like a low fit, high impact solution, right? It is QAing 100% of your calls. It's auto QA. So what this does is it gives instant visibility into 100% of your interactions, and you're avoiding doing like a few spot checks. And this means you're taking the guesswork out of the equation. You are now focusing more on strategic areas where you've identified from historical insights that, hey, these are like my top 5 behaviors where my agents are struggling the most, and these are things which I've seen as a continuous trend which needs improvement or needs correction. So you're not really spending time trying to document at an agent level, oh, you lacked empathy, you did not tag the ticket appropriately, or you did not do something else. You now exactly know what's the trend which is actually bringing the performance down, and you start focusing on that. So AutoQA is one solution. The second one is live coaching tools, right? So a lot of times, again, it's when you're hiring for seasonality, you can't really. The problem is not about rushing the training; it's more about de-risking the ramp time. And one way to do it is through live coaching tools or real-time agent guidance, where you have scripts, dynamic prompts, which are mapped to different objections that you anticipate customers making during those conversations. So this way, your agents don't have to memorize scripts. They don't have to be worried about, oh, I need to memorize 100 different scripts for 100 different possibilities. That ends up taking a lot of time because, you're not being natural. It takes away that human element, that empathy when you start doing rote learning. And so your soft skills, which get missed during these points, you can combat all of that with real-time agent guidance and, live AI coaching. And then the third piece really is, again, going back to the solution I mentioned before, your voice AI agents, right? Now, AI agents can take on repeatable, low-risk interactions, and with built-in QA, scripting, brand alignment. So what this is going to mean for you is fewer agents needed for micromanagement, and then the temp managers can start focusing on strategic oversight and not just babysitting queues.
Love it. Okay. And a similar question came in for the thread. So auto QA right now, you talked about that and the AI. Let's dig into the insights a little bit more and like what folks can see. Because the question we have is, how can AI help with different QA standards and processes across teams? So pulling out those similar threads and commonalities.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. How can AI help with different QA standards and processes across teams? In terms of QA standards, I think even when we are incorporating auto QA, when we are incorporating AI, the biggest gap to implementation really is calibration, right? So calibration is a huge portion in helping establish different standards for different teams, because one team may be taking more complex calls, and then another team might be, just taking a simpler support query. And so it is not fair to hold both teams accountable to a same QA process, right? So that's where when you have insights on, different behaviors that agents exhibit with different teams and how those behaviors are impacting outcomes, you can then build your QA form to be such that it's tracking different outcomes and different behaviors for those different teams, right? Where calibration helps is just making sure that the humans in the loop feel comfortable about AI evaluating 100% of the interactions. You want to set benchmarks on, hey, I want to achieve 85%, 90% accuracy. And then once you feel comfortable that, hey, any interaction that goes through this tool is going to give me at least 90% accuracy, I feel confident that directionally, it is evaluating my agent exactly the way a human would. So that's what I would think of when it comes to helping different teams set QA standards. The other piece too is the coaching, right? And this is after the fact, like you're waiting on historical insights, then identifying based on those QA questions and pass and fail rates, what are areas that need to be, coached upon. But when you do start with coaching, you can have like a coaching kit of, hey, these are like the evidences of how coaching is impacting specific questions and how is that impacting my overall outcome. When you have all of these evidences to guide more coaching, I think it really helps with setting the team standards.
Love it. All right, hopefully that answered your question. If not, add a follow-up in there. But for now, let's go deeper into some of what you're talking about in the summer, all of the trends and all of these examples of how AI can help, but also even just what you experience from like a customer standpoint. And I think it really comes down to 3 pressure points: staffing, outsourcing, and governance. So let's start with staffing. We've seen it, right? Summer demand surges. Maybe your most experienced agents are on PTO, or maybe they're just really burnt out by, to your point, having these like really emotionally charged conversations. So they need a minute. And so you're onboarding seasonal reps to help with that gap. They have limited experience, but the customers are expecting to get this white glove delivery. This is where I think brand consistency becomes a huge risk because your best agents aren't available, your new hires aren't up to speed, and your customer's not getting the A team. They're getting who's available, and we can definitely feel that, right? So why don't you talk a little bit more about this pressure and what you think is the most impactful here?
Yeah. So I think the tone, the policies, the confidence, right? These are things which are very hard to replicate without time and training. And that's kind of where AI, coaching, QA come into play. So we've seen companies cut their onboarding time by 50% by just layering real-time AI guidance into their agent desktop apps. And even more impactful, again, is your AI agents, right? They can handle simple queries, time-consuming interactions, like your policy-related questions, order status, maintenance checks, cancellation requests, just taking the pressure off of your live agents entirely. So staffing, yes, I think given the revolutionary period we're in with AI, I feel like AI agents, I keep talking about it almost all the time, but there are so many pros to having AI agents versus now struggling with staffing being a huge problem during these search periods, right? Now, when I think about it, like I think about, all the cons associated with seasonal staffing. One was, the onboarding that we already talked about. 2, there is additional cost, right, when it comes with seasonal staffing. And the third piece is, you really can't, in such a short period of time, you really cannot expect your temp hires to understand what your organization's broader goal is and the kind of customer experience they've been trying to drive for years before that. And so, when you incorporate that AI layer, you actually take away the bias from it. There is context consistency. There is consistency. AI does not really care for, where it fits in the agent layer. It's going to be standardized throughout. And so that's kind of where I think is going to be the most impact when it comes to staffing.
Yeah, perfect. And outsourcing, this is a big topic, right? You can't meet demand internally. That's just, before agentic AI, that was really hard to do. And so BPOs helped fill that gap, right? But it came with a cost, a really hefty budget, but more than that, right? The cost of control. You lack control over your brand tone, performance, how well those teams are representing your business. We just hear this all the time, and it looks like somebody is just commenting in the Q&A here too. Like, we outsource to reduce a risk, and we hear this part a lot, and we just traded one risk for another. It's tough. It's, a necessary trade-off, right? But I think there's a lot more we can do to help. So how can AI help them manage this and maybe shift that outsource to more of an internal sort of strategy at a more affordable cost?
Yeah. Great question again. And I'm just gonna, take that risk of sounding repetitive. But see, when demand goes up and control goes down, that is a recipe for breakdowns, unless your organization has already anticipating this. So a lot of companies, they outsource thinking it's going to solve their headcount problem. They don't realize that they're going to lose visibility in the process. Are those agents following compliance workflows? Are they upselling like they should be? Are they escalating, in the right way? So with AI, especially, automated QA with voice AI agents, you get that visibility, you get that consistency, right? You can hold both your internal and your outsourced teams accountable to the same standard. Because like I said, AI really does not care where the agent sits. And the other piece too, when it comes to incorporating like the AI agent layer, is you don't necessarily need outsourcing here, right? Your AI agents, they are in terms of the cost, they are half the cost, probably even lesser than that, compared to what you would spend on a human agent, right? For outsourcing. That's one. The other piece too is it comes with this layer of automation and augmentation. So automation is like, just taking the simpler queries and like completely deflecting it to the AI agents and making sure that, that percentage of calls, maybe 25% of calls, is not something that even touches the human agents. So again, human agents freed up, they have more time to handle the complex queries. Then comes the augmentation piece, and this is where consistency comes in, right? I was referring to my example where it would have been a lot better if, even when I'm hopping between different channels, I don't have to repeat myself. If that context was already shared from the AI agent or from a bot that I've been interacting with, or even a different agent for that matter, right? To the new agent who's handling my question. So augmentation with AI is where, even when you are hopping between different channels, the context, from the first origin touch point, it keeps flowing to the next agent who is taking up that call. And so, just in terms of staffing, in terms of outsourcing, I think AI has a huge role to play. Obviously, AutoQA is one. We talked about real time, but I honestly feel the answer, like the simpler answer, is your AI agents. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I love what you said there, right? Like, because when I talk to outsourcing with our prospects, it's about the cost of that. It's about, an agent handling it for them. What we don't talk about a lot, and is an interesting thing that you just said, is owning the customer experience and the augmentation, right? So you may have outsourced, so you're able to now handle more calls, right? You're kind of like putting a Band-Aid on this issue of the seasonality, which is great, but you have lost the control of, what is my customer experience from beginning to end, right? And am I improving it? Like, not only have you given them the agent, but you've also now don't understand what's my customer experience happening over here versus on my side. Whereas if you use an AI agent, you can track that as a seamless experience and see, is the AI agent impacting the customer experience in a positive or negative way? Is it the agent? How do we blend that together into this more cohesive unit?
Yeah.
And then, of course, evaluate that and bring it back into some feedback loops.
Yeah. And the other piece too, like, I know I've been talking too much about AI agents. Let's just keep the AI agents aside, right? Let's just talk about the other potential of AI in these scenarios. So you touched upon this, right, Jackie? The entire customer experience. So utilizing AI for customer understanding, for insights, right? Mm-hmm. So you move away from anecdotal to data-backed decision making with AI. AI can, be it can fit into a lot of different places when it comes to deriving insights for your organization. One thing, and I think this is a hot topic now, is topic modeling, sentiment analysis, just to identify what are some of the trending pain points, what are the top reasons why customers are trying to contact you, what's the intent behind which they're trying to contact you, right? When we talk about sentiment analysis, we're talking about, hey, like, let's move away from the typical single dimension CSAT survey. We're talking single dimension CSAT survey is talking about, oh, how satisfied were you with your experience? You don't really know what happened on the call beyond that. And if you're using that as your true North Star for determining what your customer experience looks like, you're missing out on a lot, right? So when you have like an AI-based sentiment model, you can go way beyond just looking at a single dimension. You can look at, hey, did my customer come in hot? And then throughout the conversation, what did my agent do? And towards the end of the conversation, how did that sentiment shift, right? Was I able to change that sentiment from negative to positive? How many of my interactions remained the same, like came in neutral, ended up being neutral? Where's that opportunity for me to keep striving for more excellence, right? So there's a lot of call attributed related insights that AI can really help with.
Yeah, I love that. I think sentiment is a powerful one. And then moving on to governance as our third pressure, right? When volume spikes, the need to stay compliant, accurate, and on message, that doesn't go away. It actually intensifies because you need to start prioritizing and shifting things so other things get deprioritized. And unfortunately, typically governance is one of them because it's not front end, and front end is just where you need to be. So you're pushing to get every call answered, you're resolving the tickets, and then suddenly QA drops from 10% to maybe 3% or even more. Coaching is then becoming reactive again instead of strategic, and it's point-based versus holistic. And so the systematic issues really just go unseen until you see the customer review, and then it's reactive again, and how do we go fix that? So what's your perspective there on how AI can help?
This is an interesting one on governance. I think the biggest gap when it comes to governance, and just because we're talking about the summer search trends, is more headcount, right? And when you have more headcount, obviously governance goes for a toss. You have new agents coming in. You're trying to, you don't know who's reporting into whom. Even if you know who's reporting into whom, like, there are a bunch of workflows that different agents need to follow along. And because everyone is trying to be efficient while maintaining empathy, I think things get really complex in those situations. And so one way I think how AI helps with the governance layer is just setting like defined workflows, right? So it could be through real-time agent assist, where you have the conversation could take any path, but then you have dynamic triggers on what the agents would need to say in those situations just based on historical evidences, right? So having that defined workflow, you're not really winging it anymore. You can start embedding escalation policies. You can do more verification checks, sentiment flags. All of this is fully baked in. All of this is fully auditable, right? So I think the way I see it is, instead of governance being a bottleneck, you need to use AI to turn it into an accelerator. Like, with governance, you're going to get scale. You're also going to get control. So that's compliance. That's also flexibility. So this is kind of where I think about how AI coming in, right? It's not really a silver bullet, but it's your strategic partner. It's not AI versus humans or AI replacing humans. It's more, hey, let's use AI to elevate all the things that the humans are doing. So think of it as AI with human. So I think just the fact that, with AI, again, eliminating inconsistencies, bringing more defined workflows, making sure like the agents have those, they're being flagged for, hey, you get live AI nuggets on, okay, if the customer responds to you a certain way, you can do X, Y, Z, right? So just having that flexibility to, oh, I don't have to follow a defined script. I have different options that I can use while making sure that I'm not compromising on my empathy. I think that's a great example of how AI helps with governance too.
Wonderful. And you bring up a really great point. So I just want to pause here. I'm going to get on my soapbox really quick around something that we hear across every conversation with leaders, whether it's CX, CTOs, CIOs, like AI is just being evaluated everywhere. And so the conversation really starts with, is AI here to replace my employees, my agents? And I think the short answer is no. AI isn't replacing your people. It's actually freeing them up to be at their best, right? When you think about all of our day-to-days, at least in mine, I would probably say 80% is a lot of just mundane things, just making sure things are working, all of those, and only 20% strategic. If you think about bringing AI in and handling some of that so that I can then move to that more strategic thinking, that is phenomenal for the business. And then when you enter into the customer experience side of the house, right, it's your experience is your number one differentiator, right? Product, features, functionalities, they matter. But at the end of the day, it's how your customers feel loyal to you. And the experience really is that. And so if you can start adding AI into that to not only free folks up to do their best, but also to expand what you never could. What if I could call my doctor 24/7 and ask more questions? What if I could send out a survey on a more regular basis to understand, are my customers feeling heard? What if I left a doctor's office sick and I get a follow-up 5 days later saying, are the antibiotics working? Did you get any side effects? Do you need a follow-up appointment? Like, wow, I feel VIP at this point, right? And so using AI to accelerate, as you said, Sneha, all of those things and to expand into so many of the other things that you've always wanted to do to make your customer experience phenomenal that you never could. Just that mindset shift is absolutely freeing, right? And so it becomes resistant to AI to now really excited and maybe saying, okay, let me just test out this use case, see if it works, and start building upon it. It becomes this experiment and this excitement within the business. And allows you to kind of shift from a business model of not just deflecting calls, but really resolving calls and being present on the calls, however that may look, right? And so I think that this is just game changer. Customers aren't as frustrated, right? They're able to like navigate all of these different things, and your loyalty just goes up and up and up. So that's my soapbox about AI plus human. I think it's a really important one. It's brought up a lot, especially in the last few months with agentic AI coming up. And so I just wanted to share that little tidbit. Sneha, how do you feel about that? How do you like, what does that look like in the field and in your customer conversations? Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I do. I think there are a few different things I see on field, right? And I definitely want to give a very honest opinion here. One, just to recap, we've talked about AI agents, how they're helping with real-time resolution. We've talked about real-time, agent assist. That's also like, making sure the caller experience is top-notch. We talked about auto QA, just making sure you have so much visibility. You can flag for early compliance risks, etc. Then we talked about the topic modeling, sentiment analysis. There's another piece to AI too, right? That's summarization. So when you have automated call notes, right, you are freeing up so much time from the time spent on wrapping up a call. And so that just gives more exposure for your agents to either handle more calls, or if they need to be handling complex calls, they spend more time without worrying about, oh, I'm going to be held against a metric on how many calls I have taken during a certain period of time. Because a lot of organizations do measure agent productivity based on the number of calls that they take, right? And what's the handle time on those calls. So a bunch of things where, we've seen massive success with customers on just being able to shift what that experience looks like, right? So many traditional broken processes internally. And then now when you're incorporating that AI layer, a lot of the amount of hard work one would have done on manually noting down, auditing these conversations, identifying, hey, like, these are what my top performers are doing, which is helping them land a certain amount of impact. And this is the opportunity delta between my top and bottom performers. Let me, establish that the behaviors that the top performers are showing are exactly what they're influencing my outcome by maybe 1%, 2%. And then if you're able to establish that correlation, let me go and, deploy that across the rest of my agent cohorts, just so I can start tracking if my other agents start performing well on the same behaviors, is their impact also linearly rising, right? So a lot of good success stories, especially around summarization and auto QA. The way I always see is auto QA is a means to an end, right? And the one thing that my team does a lot when we're working with customers is just identifying the questions that these QA forms are, the outcomes that they're mapped to. A lot of times you'll see that all of these auto QA questions are very process and compliance related. When you're using AI, when you're using auto QA, you can do way more than that, right? You can use auto QA to tag other agent attributes, other behaviors, like whether the agent is, showing empathy on a call, whether the agent followed, whole procedure, whether the agent tried to rebuttal to a customer objection. There's so many different things you can track with auto QA, which is still not happening, right? And so mapping your questions to the outcomes that you're trying to drive, not just process and compliance related, more which is going to be generating revenue for your business. AI can help in surfacing all of those insights for you, right? And another use case that it's something that we've been working with a few customers on. That's just helping customers identify if the questions on your QA form are even making any difference to your outcome, right? And even if you have, then can we help, do predictive modeling for you, some regression analysis for you, and help you establish what the weighting for each question needs to be. Maybe you're putting 50% weight on a question, which is barely having 1% impact on your outcome, right? So can we use different models, and can we use all this data and AI to give you an understanding of how you need to structure your process in the first place, right? Can we give you examples of what coaching areas you need to map against? Yeah, you have auto coaching too, right? Auto coaching is such a great example of AI where, instead of, you definitely need supervisors to come in, identify, what those agent gaps are, make sure that they're having a one-on-one conversation. But again, just like QA, even in the supervisor world, in the coaching world, how many agents do you think one supervisor can take on? How many coaching sessions do you think one supervisor is going to be able to do, to a point where, the agent is consistently getting that coaching and you're able to track that effectiveness? I imagine when you incorporate the AI layer into it, at every interaction, the agent themselves are getting fed an input, are getting fed a response on, hey, based on this conversation, like, you could have done XYZ better. So when you see something right after that call, it's fresh in your mind. You're going to incorporate that immediately in the next call. So, that iterative process of just improving on the spot, that makes a world of difference. Because imagine, Jackie, you and I, if we got coaching 2 months ago on a specific topic, and then a situation like that comes up again, I'm probably not going to remember in the heat of the moment that, oh, I was coached on this, I was supposed to exhibit this attribute, but I totally forgot about it. Versus, as the conversation is going on, if, I have someone telling me, oh, like, do XYZ, like, you could have done this better, it's so fresh in my mind that, if I come across a similar situation, in a day or two, I just know that, okay, this is what I was coached upon, and I'm going to keep working on it. So, yeah, a lot of different success stories around the use cases of AI, how it helps with seasonality, how it helps with, like, staffing, governance, just insights in general, right? But I also think, like, the other side to it is implementation. It's not really, oh, can AI, how AI is good, yes. I think the biggest gap really is in how you're able to implement it. There are a lot of challenges that you need to overcome before you start seeing successful results for AI. You'll see a lot of companies say, hey, we've implemented AI during like a seasonal or a summer search period. My operational efficiency, in efficiency went down by or went up by 40%, but my return on investment only went up by like 2%, right? So the math is not mathing. What do you do in those situations? Such a common question. So I think implementation is the answer to that portion where there's a lot of value that you start realizing through implementation, which is oftentimes overlooked. And just making sure that your data warehouses are in alignment. There's no data parity. You have everything structured, flowing seamlessly. Only then will you start realizing the impact of AI. I know I went on a spiel, but yeah.
We both had our soapboxes for the day. No, I love that one. I think, AI it's so complex, but it's everywhere. And so I think it's just this very confusing concept, right? And it really comes down to success lies with AI meeting you where you're at, right? We all have these lofty goals and so much excitement, but we may have blockers in the way. And so to your point, I think implementation is a really big piece to evaluate, right? And do an audit around, here's where I am, here's what's working for me that really feeds well into AI right now. Here's maybe some things that need XYZ in order for AI to work in a cohesive way. And so it's really kind of like pen to paper, being real and honest about this is what I can do now, and this is what I can maybe do in the future. And so building out this maturity assessment or this AI journey, if you will, to make sure that the impact is working, to your point, and the return on investment continues to grow and grow and grow. And we like to say it as the walk, crawl, run. And somebody the other day told me fly. So I love that now. It's the walk, crawl, run, fly AI journey. So I think that's a really great point. And, we hear that a lot is, I'm not seeing the impact. I'm not seeing the impact. So that was a good point to call out. We do actually have an assessment that helps you go through that and asks some pretty critical questions to just help you start to think about what is working, where should I focus. So I'll drop that in the chat in the next few minutes here so that you can do that. It's free, it's quick, and helps kind of start to kickstart that audit.
Yeah. So I have one question on this, right? Based on all this discussion we've had, Jackie, like if you were to just summarize and tell the audience, or maybe any CX leader for that matter, right? If they were looking at implementing solutions or implementing AI to be prepared for the next seasonal trend or for the next summer surge. So realistically, what should they expect? What's the timeline? Just based on, all the prospects, customers that we talk with, what's the expectation that they need to go with just so they're not set up for disappointment and failure?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the best answer, but I think this is the real answer. And you can add on to it as well, Sneha. But I don't think that there is one strategy. It's not like a one size fits all solution. I think every company has different problems. At the surface, they may bucket and be themed into one, right? And so there are some similarities. But when you peel back that onion and understand what is that stopping you from doing, what are those roadblocks really causing in terms of business outcomes? What are your goals this year or in 5 years? That's where the nuances really start to come through. And I think having those tough conversations, right? I can't even count how many times the customers come in and said, this is my problem, which it is. But when you really start to ask the questions, dig into the data, the problem ends up being something completely different. And it then feeds back into this, right? And so it's building this kind of partnership and collaboration on where do we scale for volume and quality? What issues are actually ready for automation? are we equipping your people to exceed right now? And which problems are going to make the quickest impact, right? There's quick ROI, and then there's the long game. And setting those expectations on, I know you want to solve this, that's going to take X amount of time. If you want quick ROI, let's do some of these things that are going to be quick wins, while this thing over here is building up an engine, and then your ROI will start in X time. So I don't know if I answered that completely directly, but I think it really is having those tough conversations and auditing and really talking about what you're going to see when you're going to see it, and maybe thinking about more innovative ideas of, if that's what you need, let's start here and kind of shift the focus from there.
Yeah, yeah, I love that response, and that is true. There is no one set strategy that works for everyone, right? It's unique to everyone's use case, and you just have to be adaptive to that implementation cycle. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in right now. Anything else that you want to address before we let folks go, Sneha?
No, I think the only thing that I do want to say is, if you walk away with one idea, it's going to be this, right? AI is not about replacing people. It's about preparing them for peak volumes, for complex requests, for real conversations that are going to make or break your brand loyalty. And so all the stuff that we covered around, automation, real-time guidance, summarization, AI for sentiment, for insights, topic modeling, AI for coaching, right? So your AI agents, all of this put together, like, there are so many different ways in which AI can fit into your organizational layer of operational efficiency. It's just a matter of trying to figure out, like, what's going to be low lift, high impact, just so you yourself are able to start building that trust in, oh, AI can actually move the needle for me. And then once you start seeing results, then you scale up even more.
Yeah. I love that. Not to add one more thing to walk away with, but I think the second thing too is dust off that never-ending to-do list that you always wanted to do for your customer experience. Bring it out, look at it, evaluate your customer journey, and start to fit AI into it. Imagine what AI can do to enable you to actually start doing those things, versus, this is the to-do list that I'll never be able to get to because I don't have the budget, I don't have the people. So start dreaming that, start mapping out your customer journey, see what you can do. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised as you talk to vendors around, wow, AI can do this, I can afford it. So that's my second walk away for you guys. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us. The recording and any follow-up materials will be sent over via email. And if you want to dive deeper into anything we talked about, our inboxes are open. So always reach out to Observe, ask for a demo. We're happy to talk. This session is monthly, always on Thursdays from 9 to 10 Pacific time. So we hope you join us for next month. And next month's going to be a really fun one. We are going to talk about all things change management with an expert on this topic, Deanne Moore. So I hope to see you all next month. And until then, have a great summer.
Yeah, have a great summer. Bye.